better watch out if your enemy's a road ahead of full prophecy to be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me, and he gets caught real big, pissed off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead. Metaphorically, of course, settling the score, never getting bored. Lots of blood and gore, always wanting more freedom from the source. They don't really listen until they feel the force of party. And if you start shit, you be heartless in the darkness. Torn apart quick, you left scars ripped, you be chewed up and discarded. And this world ain't bright, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it.
Excuse me, I can't seem to find these anywhere.
Huh. These books are no longer available.
I didn't know.
May I have your name, please?
Why?
Excuse me.
What did I do?
We just have a couple of questions.
Easy, easy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Where did everybody go? There they are. I don't know why it was on just me. Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Because we were looking up subversive books in the library.
That's right. Just in case you guys were wondering, that was an ad actually from back in 2002. Back then, people probably thought it was a bit extreme, but 23 years later, here we are. Almost in that exact same scenario. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. We have an amazing guest lined up. Liz is back. So you know what we are talking about. We are talking about public education. Because like we've been telling everybody for almost a year and a half now that they were going to try and eliminate the Department of Education. And that is exactly what they are trying to do as we speak. Why are they trying to do this? Well, they don't want a population that has the ability to think for itself, one, or two, they want to control the flow of information. They want to control what people learn. That's how you subjugate people.
And groom them.
Right. But in all reality, it comes down to, because these people are very predictable, it comes down to money, because the Department of Education is worth about $280 billion a year worth of funding that these rich people want to keep for themselves.
Elon is licking his lips for that.
Right. That's just money sitting there that they are ready to get their hands on. They cannot wait to get their hands on it. But welcome back, Liz.
Hey.
How are you? How's everything going down in Florida? Ground zero for fascism in America.
I don't know. A few other states are giving us a run for their money.
Right.
I think for our money.
Right?
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The Republicans are always talking about making America better and great again. So I guess they want to outdo each other for the most ignorant hellscape that they could create.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The only hope I think that I have is they are running into a lot of judicial roadblocks, because there are some checks and balances that are still holding up for now, like you said. Because I think in Oklahoma, a judge ruled that they cannot put Bibles in the schools.
Yes.
Correct.
Which is fantastic. That's how it should be. But the fact that they're trying to do it should tell you the direction this country is going. We all know Donald Trump is the Antichrist. So the fact that they want to teach Christianity in schools, and the fact that they've chosen that guy as their representative blows me away a little bit.
Jeremy, I wanted to add to that. I believe in Oklahoma, what the ruling is that they cannot use the Bible as instructional material. So the Bible can still be in a library, which I think it should be able to be in a library.
Of course, it's reference material. The Quran
they wanted
to funnel it. In there.
They wanted to put it into the curriculum. Well, what does your Muslim student do, during that
How about
lesson?
this? The Vedas should be in there. The I Ching should be in there. Should I keep going over all the religious material that they are not going to make sure are in there? Because again, just like Jeremy said, and we've talked about this, it's not about getting kids no view. It's about getting kids the view they want, what education is supposed to be. And I believe something that we will all learn from our guest today is that education is about ensuring a communal sense and understanding that we are not alone and that there is more than our individual opinions and viewpoints. And that scares the crap out of the Christian fascists.
Right.
It does. But the propaganda they've spewed, they've convinced their people, at least, that the Department of Education somehow sets curriculum, which we've talked about plenty of times. They don't. The states are responsible for curriculum. So if you're mad about your kids' test scores and how poor their education is, you should look to your state representatiors and not blame the Department of Education.
Are you implying that the average MAGA voter has no clue how anything works?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying.
All right, so let's get to the good stuff, though.
Yes,
Liz.
So
yes,
yeah,
take it away.
Well, I of course have been involved in this work furiously, probably for about 30 years or so. When I lived in Michigan, when Betsy DeVos started all of her shenanigans, I'll call it, up there. And so the work with Stop Moms for Liberty started shortly after Moms for Liberty was founded in the state of Florida, in my county. And I tried feverishly at the beginning to reason with these people that were being, funneled all this misinformation about public schools and about libraries. Mm-hmm. And instead they attacked me. And so that's how I was motivated to start Stop Moms for Liberty across the country. And we've done a lot. We're in, I think it's 45 states at
that's
this
awesome.
point. And these groups, are doing boots on the ground, going to school board meetings, going to city council meetings, and people are speaking up. And when you were talking about rays of hope, I've got a lot of hope since all of this garbage started on the national level with the cutting of funding. People are seeing it and they are not liking what they are seeing. No. When you branch things out to the big picture, they're not smart to go after Social Security. And yet, they're going down those roads that are making people pay attention. Well, we weren't able to get as much attention onto education as these other topics. When you attack veterans, when you attack Social Security, it brings in a whole nother demographic of people. And they say now, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, they shouldn't be attacking education either. So their missteps are good. I
get that they couldn't learn until they touched the stove, but a lot of them now is being pushed against the stove.
If you want to have some hope, watch Republican town halls.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They are not happy. No. And one guy got dragged out by the police, not dragged out, but escorted out by the cops. A veteran.
One guy recently, my favorite one was some dude, clearly a MAGA guy. I believe he had a MAGA hat on. Was asking his rep, I'm going to screw up the words, but it was essentially this. Do you believe that the invasion of Ukraine was illegal? And then he said,
yes or no.
Off into the woods. Don't go off into the woods with your answer. Just answer the question.
Yeah, they have a thing called the empty chair town halls.
Yeah.
And so they're setting up town halls across the country. I love it. And for representatives that will not show up to those town halls, they've got an empty chair with that person's name on it.
And guess who's showing up to help do those town halls?
Yeah, I even just posted a little thing where people made about one in here in Florida where their rep didn't show up. And it was a Where's Anna poster, like with a Where's Waldo outfit. So pretty cool. People are getting very creative. And there's just more and more people every day becoming involved in the fight. Right. So during my journey of all of this, I came across one of our members of Stop Moms for Liberty. We posted something about an attack that was made on her. And she says, hey, here I am. I'm one of your members. And I think shortly thereafter, or maybe she was in the process of writing the phenomenal book that we're going to be talking about today. And That Librarian has really changed a lot in my way of thinking and my resolve to keep doing the work that we're doing, because she has really faced hell. And unfortunately, that happens to a lot of us when we're in the trenches, I guess, working for these things. So I am very, very proud to introduce a woman who was not only Librarian of the Year, but is on all of the major networks, has been interviewed by everybody, it seems. It's a pretty phenomenal movement for libraries that she has really pushed and started. And so welcome, please, Amanda Jones.
Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time. We know you. We had a little bit of a scheduling conflict. Our time zones mess us up every single time.
I'm so busy all the time.
Well, welcome.
We appreciate your time on a Sunday for sure.
We've been lucky to have a range of awesome people on, and I'm not going to fangirl, but I do love myself a librarian because I have a lot of fond memories from what I always saw. The librarians were where all the weird kids went to feel normal and check out awesome choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
That's how old I am. So it is really a pleasure to have someone with your background and your lineage on our show.
Yep. I show my age. I grew up on the Dewey Decimal System, which I still think
me too.
created by the devil, but I cannot verify that. But thank you for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little bit of your journey and how you've come to end up here, because I'm sure the environment for librarians has changed a little bit over the last, say, 10 years or so.
Yes. So I'm a school librarian in Louisiana, and I've been working at my school for 24 years, and the same school that I attended as a child. And I've lived in my community, very small town in Louisiana, for 46 years. I guess I became an accidental activist. That's what I call it. Back in 2022. I didn't set out to become like a face of the movement, but I am now, so I'll own it. And
that's a good thing.
But yeah, it doesn't bother me. I'm proud of it. But I went and spoke as a resident of my community against censorship attempts in our public library. I just happened to be a school librarian. And then I was targeted by Christian nationalists, and I'm still being targeted and harassed by several men and people in my community, accused of awful things. And so I ended up, that was back in 2022. I had always been outspoken about diverse literature and librarians, but I really became the focus of some, the usual suspects back in 2022. In fact, Moms for Liberty tweeted on their national page. Oh, my light went out. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
They tweeted on my national their national page that I could cry harder, groomer. So there we go. She should be crying in bed for days. Groomer children, all for the crime of giving a speech about intellectual freedom and anti-censorship at the public library.
Wow.
I decided to post that.
How dare you stand up for people trying to live their lives and check out a book?
I mean, I didn't even say anything controversial.
Well, but that's the key, isn't it? I mean, this movement of anti-intellectualism, of anti-public just anti-educational movement,
right?
is based off attacking people with no proof. They just kind of rhinoceros their way right through it, and the steamroll effect brings with it all these claims and all this fervor that don't jive with reality, but their target audience doesn't care, doesn't need facts, doesn't need proof. That in itself, in my mind, is indicative of the downfall of education in this country, that we have so many people that don't immediately go, okay, but prove your claim.
Right. And my thing with education, though, is when they keep saying the parents should not be telling their kids what they need to learn. That's not what, you know what I mean? Parents have a responsibility at home to teach their kids about life and all that stuff like that. And then the school, you're supposed to rely on the school to teach your kids the proper things, so they're not complete idiots. But it seems like we have a culture now that wants their kids, they're actually voting for their own children to be dumber than them, which is terrifying, which is very, very scary. Yeah, it is astonishing, and I will never understand it. But the fact that librarians are getting attacked now blows my mind.
Isn't it because, all right, I'm going to go a little fantasy, a little magical, because let's face it, books are magic, libraries are magical places, but libraries are bastions of knowledge. There's a reason the Library of Alexandria was burned to the ground. There's a reason throughout history when tyrants take over, they burn the books, they burn the knowledge, because they will not suffer from the lack of knowledge because they kept it for themselves. But the average person will suffer in a dark ages, which benefits the rulers. So it's like we're doing it again, and it's pretty obvious.
We are very close to book burns. I mean, Donald Trump's administration, I hate to bring him up during this episode, but they are literally removing the Black Lives Matter monument. They're erasing, deleting archives of soldiers that are not white.
Well, guess what else they're doing? Attacking actual libraries. So the president, I refuse to call him by name, signs executive order gutting Institute of Museum and Library Services. Now, we all know executive orders don't actually mean anything, but when you're ignoring Congress and checks and balances, it's a risk. By eliminating the only federal agency dedicated to funding library services, the administration's executive order is cutting off at the knees the most beloved and trusted American institution and the staff and services they offer. He's trying to kill the ability for Americans to find out, A, that he's a fascist, B, that Christian nationalists are monsters, and C, that if you dumb down the population, you can take control of them. It's as simple as that. Amanda, what do you
they're also trying to privatize these institutions, and so they're not hiding it, because U.S. Representative Clay Higgins from Louisiana, where I'm from, tweeted a year or two ago, one day all of our libraries will be church owned. And
oh God, that terrifies me.
And then, first of all, if Clay stepped into a church, he would know that most churches have their own libraries already. Exactly. But the thing is that, libraries are for everyone, people of no religion or all religions. And, no, they shouldn't be church owned. There's a reason why they're not church owned. But the ultimate goal of this is to defund our public institutions and our libraries. And we saw that yesterday with the executive order to eliminate the Institute of Library and Museum Services, which, by the way, provides grants. Just in Louisiana, it provided $2.7 million in grants for rural libraries, for broadband services and training in rural libraries. So the libraries that are going to be affected the most in the states are the rural libraries, or the libraries that don't have the funding like the major cities do.
Yep. Well, it's funny. We, Liz and I went through and we kind of compiled. Liz did a lot of the hard work, all of it, sending me a bunch of great quotes. And I have to find it in here, but that was one of them, where you basically talk about communities, not libraries, not just being a place where people gather to talk and look at books, but elderly people doing their taxes, which the let's just say the Elon Musk administration is now trying to force to be done online or in person, which negatively impacts seniors. So if you don't have libraries, now you don't have free services for seniors to do filing for taxes, filing for Medicaid, which they'll cut. So a library isn't just an educational center. It is a resource that communities don't have any other way. Like you said, simple Wi-Fi access. Not every rural community, everyone's got routers and everyone's got great Wi-Fi. It just doesn't work like that. And the people that don't understand that are more easily acceptable of getting rid of what they think are wasteful services. It's the same as they think the post office is wasteful. The post office is a service. Libraries are a service. There are things you do in communities to serve the people. Libraries being one of the most important. School libraries probably being the most important because, books, kids, learning.
Yeah.
But if you want to do these services, what's left? What kind of a community do we have left? Is there a place for you, Amanda, in a world run by Christo-fascists who want to burn books instead of read them?
I mean, if you look at the public library just here in my community, in Louisiana, we have a lot of hurricanes and things. And we had a major flooding incident in 2016 where 90% of the homes were lost. The libraries were up and running in 5 days, filing insurance claims, helping people file insurance claims and giving them access to law. Like lawyers were coming in and how do you file these claims and how do you fill out this paperwork? And we have classes, English as a second language classes and even story time for little children, and which is promoting literacy at a young age. And and it's not, people think libraries are just books. You can check out telescopes and you can access databases. Right. You can even, for people in our community that can't afford to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries in our community, we have celebration packets they can check out, and so libraries are so much more than books, and there's so many services, and to cut that out is doing a disservice. But the people who want to cut them out are privileged, and they're people that can generally afford.
Right.
I hear a lot of people say there's no such thing as a book ban because you can go there's no such thing as a book ban because you can still go to public libraries. Well, first of all, they're attacking the public libraries as well.
Yeah.
And second of all, that's a from a place of privilege, because if you look at the children in my community. We send children home over the weekend with food because they won't eat over the weekend. They don't have Amazon bookstore money.
Oh, but that doesn't happen in this country. That's just a liberal lie, right?
See, this is what infuriates me about America. We can't even get free school lunch because it's socialism. Like, give me a freaking break while we give billionaires tax breaks and government funding.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's capitalism. But feeding hungry children, because I'm a father, I'm a single dad. My kids are grown now, but I had custody of them since they're 8 and 10. People have heard this story a few times. My daughter was born deaf. So like her having an IEP and specialized services was essential for her education, just to get a basic education. Yeah. And I had to fight tooth and nail just to get, because I live in a rural area, so I had to fight tooth and nail just to get an interpreter. Like they would call us some days and be like, "Oh, we don't have an interpreter today." Like it's no big deal.
Your kid doesn't get to learn today.
What do you mean? It's like they just said it like it's no big deal. Oh, they called it out sick. Well, what's the backup plan? And they don't have one. Well, but yeah, long story short, I ended up sending my daughter to a state-funded school for the deaf in Pittsburgh, where she got an absolutely amazing education. And one of the most beautiful things they had in that place, I mean, it was like walking in, I don't know. I felt like I was a kid again, was the library, the way it was decorated, just the environment, the resources they had available. And stuff like that may go away. That school may not exist because it's state funded. They may pull for it. I'm sure they get funds from elsewhere too. They may pull funding for it. Who knows?
One thing, Amanda, you said, and we've been talking about so far is, all the other things outside of just books. One of the most important things that my local library does is they have a ton of VR and 3D printers. And they're constantly posting pictures of kids learning how to use these technologies, posting this stuff that they designed and printed. And what a lot of people don't understand, and this goes back to what I'm going to say, unfortunately, a lot of parents can't accept. Your generation is not going to be here forever. Your kids' generation is. And we have to advance their knowledge of technology, of science. Oh, I said a bad word. Of everything that's going to bridge your generation with their generation and beyond. Kids need to learn how to code. They need to be exposed to this. And if your schools are not providing this, public libraries are often the only place, the only bastion of education or knowledge that kids can go to even touch these things. You can go online and watch videos of 3D printers, but to be able to touch one and see the magic of your idea be printed, that's going to create a little scientist, just a little genius that wants to go invent things. And that is what I think one of the things the Christian right wants to destroy is the ability for kids to imagine a world that isn't crushed into conformity. They don't want anything else.
Yeah.
They know.
Well, it all feels so overwhelming, right? And so, as always on these podcasts, I always try to pull us back to a position of hope. And full disclosure, Amanda, I felt like I was reading my life when I read your book. And I have gotten such hope out of reading about your journey. And I thank you personally for that. But I think that a lot of people in America really need to hear a little bit more about your story because it's just so impactful that you didn't give up. Amazing.
Well, because it's not easy, but it's you rose to the call, in other words, and it wasn't your choice. And that's what makes you an effective leader because you didn't want this.
Exactly. So tell us more.
Well, I have a tattoo on my wrist. I can see it. It's a P3, cubed, and it stands for to use your power and privilege for purpose. And it's a quote by author Samira Ahmed, and my light went out again. I was trying not to be in the dark. But it's to use your power and privilege for purpose. And I didn't set out. I just went to give a speech to protect my public library. And then, but I was given, I was the 2021 National School Librarian of the Year. And that gives you a platform. And to me, if you are given a platform and you don't use it, that's a waste of a platform. To me, if I was silent about this, if I just slunk away and did what they wanted me to do and be silent, my silence will be my compliance, and I'm not going to be complicit in this movement of eradication of people and their stories. But if you look at, there was a study by the Human Rights Coalition in 2023 that said there's a very large percentage of kids at schools particularly from the LGBTQ plus community, that feel unsafe at schools. But 9 out of 10 on this study said that they felt safe in the school library. And to me, that's a huge responsibility, because our libraries, whether it's a public or a school library, libraries are for everyone. And my school library is for every student in my school, and every child in my school deserves to be represented and seen and felt safe, and they deserve their family stories to be on the shelves. And people will, when I say that, people will confound that and say, oh, she wants sexually explicit material in school libraries. That's not what I'm saying at all. That's not what I'm saying at all. But they equate the LGBTQ plus community with sexually explicit. Right, and what I will tell you is,
because they fetishize the LGBTQ.
They do. And I professionally review every book in our school library is professionally reviewed as age relevant for our kids. And just because no matter what anybody in my community thinks or believes, we have students with 2 moms and 2 dads. Yep. And they deserve their families to be represented in the stories just like everyone else.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get into some of that.
What was that book that they just freaked out about?
That doesn't narrow it down.
No, never mind. Yeah, there's too many. There's too many. Go ahead. Go ahead. Please proceed. Sure, what am I saying? There's like a million books.
Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, but no, let's get some of the material, because I think, a lot of what you're saying and we're talking about can really be highlighted by material from your book. And yes, I'm going to plug the crap out of it, because it's so critical. And unfortunately, it's a necessary book for an unnecessary fight, because we should not be fighting to preserve knowledge. Yeah. If people think the point of life is to breed or collect material items, to me, the point of life is somewhere 10,000 years from now, we have this repository on little crystals of all of human knowledge. We've already lost so freaking much of it to nonsense and fascism. I just would love to see what that looks like in the future when we get to look back on 2025 and say, we persevered over fascism. We kept knowledge in the hands of the people. But I think it's important to see your words. So this is something you said that I love. Librarians are sometimes the only defenders of intellectual freedom, and it is a job to be taken seriously. Everyone, I know there was always a chuckle back in the day. Oh, the librarian, the librarian. That's because no one realizes what librarians do. You're basically the wizards of the real world. You catalog the scrolls and the tomes and the grimoires and all the awesome books. You tell stories of history. You weave together tales that give people understanding that they wouldn't have out of context. But the one thing I want to go to first is something that you brought up about kids, and I think it gets bigger when you look into it. You said, well, no crap, I was one of your students. I think these people are jerks. Is this legal? Because it looks like cyberbullying that kids do, and that's illegal. So that gave me a thought. Let's look at cyberbullying. There are currently no federal law against cyberbullying.
That's crazy.
But all 50 states have laws against bullying in general, and every state except Alaska and Wisconsin includes an explicit reference to cyberbullying in their anti-bullying laws. So you also said knowing the character of the people throwing the stones while they sit on a moral high horse. Well, these are people that'll tell you,
that's my favorite quote from the book, by the way.
I like that.
Right?
I like
Sticks and stones, all of this, but yet they'll tell you, you shouldn't pick on a kid. But then when their kid gets accused of bullying, it's, well, your kid should grow a pair. Well, then these are the same parents that are bullying you. The same parents that bully other adults. The whole reason we have these doxing and all these attacks online is just frickin' bullying. Yes, but let's look at how you opened your book. Because when I started reading it, it blew my mind that you basically chose to throw us right into it. And I'm going to read this one. Amanda, you are indoctrinating our children with perversion and pedophilia grooming. Your evil agenda is getting print and national coverage. Congrats. Continue with your LGBT agenda on your children, because we gonna put your fat, suddenly it devolves in language, your fat, evil commie pedo as, they decided to, censor as in case they got in trouble, in the dirt very soon. I'm not going to say the next word. You can't hide. We know where you work and live. You have a large target on your back. Click, click, see you. This was a death threat you received on August 14th, 2022.
That's insane.
I mean, that's cyberbullying, right? Well, this is what people don't understand.
I thought death threats were illegal, but
people are attacking you, and you look at the amount of people who don't even have the ability to read at a functional level, and it's easy to see why people treat librarians as if they're nothing. All right. How can a population be convinced a lie is the truth? That librarians are attacking them instead of the protectors of our history? Well, 21% of Americans are illiterate. 21%, that's 52 million adults, are illiterate. 54% of Americans can't read beyond the level of an 11-year-old. As someone who has the distinction of having the New York Post as one of their local newspapers, it's written at like a third grade level. Like, so that people can understand the propaganda clearly. 57% of Americans have no education past high school, which
that's me.
Doesn't always mean you can't read or don't have something to contribute or aren't intelligent. Maybe if we made school something most people can achieve and go to freely, I don't know. America ranks 36 in the world for literacy levels. White U.S.-born adults are the largest group with low literacy.
Derp. That's crazy.
I know this is a crazy topic within the world that you are now living in, but what does the bullying mean? Is this an extension of a fear? Is it an extension of a people feeling inadequate? Why are so many people attacking libraries when all you do is provide educational resources to people freely who want them?
Part of the problem is that they see it from our legislators. So, in my state, our now governor, when he was AG, he ran on a platform of protecting the innocent, and he created a hotline where you could call and report educators and librarians for giving children sexually explicit material. And he came out with this. Yeah, he came out with this report that provided zero proof that any of it was happening. Yeah. He still has yet to provide any proof that this is happening. But he did this report, and he provided 10 books, and almost every single one of the books is an adult book found in the adult section that had nothing to do with children. But you see politicians my current state senator from my area, her campaign flyer says she's going to end the woke indoctrination in our schools. Well, everybody in our school system is born and raised here. And let's be honest, they're mostly of the same political persuasion as her. So I'm like, what is she talking about? Yeah. So with no proof. And so these politicians use us as pawns for their own political gain. And so people pick that up. And then the news reports on what they're saying. Like someone said, Fox News, and then and then it's compounded by social media. People believe every meme and thing that they see.
Yes.
When it happened to me, when I was targeted, a meme was made. I gave a blanket speech about censorship at the public library, and a man made a meme saying, with my face on it, that said, "I advocate the teaching of anal sex to 11-year-olds." Now, yes. People I've known my entire life were believing this and still believe it to this day. They will believe what some random keyboard warrior says about you on social media rather than what they know and they feel and they've known their whole lives.
How about this? They will believe someone, you're in Louisiana. They'll believe someone who says this. They're in Wisconsin. I'm just making up a state. It doesn't matter. Yet the people that believe it are the people that you just had a holiday party with. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, people are so easy to revert to their fears over their instincts because people want to say, oh, I'm following my instincts and I know that that's pornography. No, you don't. You're stupid. But you're not following your instincts knowing the people you grew up with. You said, this was your town. You grew up there. You went to school there. There are people who are former teachers that congratulated you when you became the librarian of that school that now think you're a degenerate monster. Mm-hmm. Because why? Because like you said, you're living in the town. Is the town woke or is it always been the same? And now they realize there's books they never checked out. And they're like,
the right has wrapped everything up into the boogeyman word, woke. Mm-hmm. Woke indoctrination. You keep hearing that over and over again, which is they've convinced people. They've convinced people that public schools are Donald Trump gave a speech where he said that your kid goes to school one gender and then comes home a couple days later a different. Like this is what they're teaching, and people.
You don't have money for books. You're not funding surgeries.
The problem with people, and especially in America, because of the illiteracy problem, is we've gone over this. We actually made a whole show on it. Somebody somewhere is going to believe the most insane thing. Somebody, at least one person statistically, is going to believe the most ridiculous stuff. But somehow, through Fox News and Twitter and other social media platforms, they have turned all this propaganda into a weapon and focused it on the most easily manipulated, I'll call them. Because if I say what I want to say, then this video will get taken down.
You're right. I mean, I've also
I'm behaving.
Back to the whole communities are community centers. You know, people are attacking the ability to gather, the ability to allow kids and even adults to experience other cultures. You know, this is a movement. The anti-public library, the anti-education movement is a movement based off isolation. They think that they want to send their kids to public school, but they really want to keep their kids in the basement and just throw the Bible at them every couple of hours with a little bit of food to torture them into believing what they want to believe. And I'm only using the Bible as an excuse in this example because there are plenty of people that are anti-education that want to teach them random nonsense that has nothing to do with religion. So my point is, public schools and public libraries in general are meant to offer everyone a chance. And the movement against it doesn't want to give their kids a chance. And they're using the lie that public schools, public education, public libraries, and school libraries just have Hustler magazines sitting on pedestals. But like you said, the books that they're arguing about are in different sections of the library. Now, these people likely have never been to libraries, so they don't actually know how they're set up. You know, Jeremy mentioned the Dewey Decimal System, which was definitely created by someone to torture us. But even back in the day, it's not like they had adult fiction right next to a children's picture book next to stars of the universe.
Right.
They're organized in ways to not only make it easy to find books, but to segregate what different age groups and different groups of people don't want to be around. So what that means is their implication is that people don't have rights to what are in public libraries. You know what I say about that? Bullshit. Why? Because all library users have the First Amendment right to borrow, read, view, and listen to library resources according to the ALA. If an individual is concerned about a children's or young adult's resource or its location in the library, that individual has the right to go through the library's reconsideration policy that is already in place. Each family has the right to determine which library resources are acceptable for its own children. But individuals must also realize that they must afford the same rights to all other parents. So what that means is a public library and a school library isn't a separate institution that just a bunch of people are going, what books should we make kids read? It's literally crafted and designed and maintained by the public. If you want to know what's in your library, go to the meetings that talk about what books are in the library. If you find a book you don't like, go through the process. Either they're going to go, you're dumb and you're saying that book is where it is and it isn't, or that's a legitimate concern, let's address it. How about this? Most public libraries have guidelines for unaccompanied minors, which state that parents should accompany their children in the library. It is the responsibility of parents to monitor their kids, their own children, in which sections they are allowed to browse in public libraries. So parents who want to control over their kids' reading should be parents. Just parent your kid. I'm getting sick of this whole, we send our kids out into the world. You have to do what we say to babysit them. Well, but then why are you sending them out into the world? Just keep them in their rooms and do what you want. Because if you're putting them out in public, you now signed a verbal agreement, a social contract to be part of a society. So,
well, I was going to say, our governor in the legislature, I went to go speak 2 years ago, and our governor said parents should be able to drop their children off at the library and not worry. And I got up and spoke right after him, and I said, "Excuse me, the library is not a daycare center."
Yeah.
We have unaccompanied minor policies, and once a kid gets to 13, they can be unaccompanied and but then if you don't want them to read certain things, that's your responsibility as a parent to monitor.
How about
them.
this? Tell your kid, don't read that book. See how fast they do what you don't want. Why? Because banning things never worked. But you have a right to tell that to your kid.
I grew up in the libraries, like I'm that old, 47. I grew up in the libraries. At no point in my mind did I go, I'm gonna go find some porn at the library.
Not at the library.
Never, even as a kid, like even as a raging hormone teenager, never in my
like,
life did I go, you know what, guys, library,
let's get
right now.
But you know what's funny?
Happening.
Here's the irony, and this is something that always pisses me off. There are no guys in trench coats hiding around the next aisle of books. But if you go to kiddie beauty pageants, that whole audience is full of guys in trench coats waiting for those kids to walk out of there. So again, look at who these people are attacking. They're not attacking the actual threats to their kids. They're attacking the way out for their kids. They're attacking the way to, you want your kid to be more than what you were. You're going to need libraries to do that. You're going to need to know what the hell's going on in the world, past, present, and future, to have a kid learn how to grow up, how to be a better person, how to be a moral citizen, right? I bet you if you filled a whole library with nothing with civics books, these same parents would be like, I don't like those books. They're telling my kid how to be a Democrat or a socialist or a citizen. They don't
the irony is that these kids all have phones in their hands. And I actually wrote an article for School Library Journal called The Danger is in Their Hands, talking about how it's not the books, it's in their hands. And the same people that harassed me about writing the article about internet safety. So like nothing's going to please them.
Yeah.
Because they're just slumpy, ignorant people.
Yeah. That is such a good point. You're attacking libraries when everybody has a computer in their pockets. Really? It just seems like it's obviously their priorities are not what they say they are. There's some
and through the life of Stop Moms for Liberty has always said, imagine the impact if the Moms for Liberty movement had actually tried to address some of the real issues in education.
They had the
instead of trying to manufacture these boogeymen around every corner, which are 99.9% falsehoods.
Yep.
I won't say that there isn't any, bad thing out there, because there will be.
Shit slips
just like anything else, right? But imagine if they had put their power behind making sure that kids were fed.
Yep.
Making sure that kids had clean clothing to wear.
They don't care.
Imagine they've got a big membership, and they could have done such good instead of creating all this hysteria.
They are interested in banning books and legislating that, but at the same time, they don't care what their kid watches on TV when they go to sleep.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing.
It's true.
A lot of these people are not. Some people are naive because there's a lot of people out there on food stamps and Medicaid and all that stuff that are about to lose everything, and they're not going to know how to feed their kids. They're going to wake up one day and all their benefits are just going to be gone. Then education's going to disappear, and then this is going to affect Republican states more than anywhere else.
That's so true.
That is the crazy part. If they have convinced this entire population of people to vote against their children's own best interests. Not even just themselves, but their future generations are now going to suffer the consequences of their actions because they didn't want their kids to be woke or whatever their excuse is. You know what I mean? It's just, I can't believe that's what America's come to. But the
last thing on the parents have rights thing that they pretend they don't have, Amanda, you brought this up, and I want to go into it quick. A bill titled Sensitive Materials in Schools became law in March 2022. This bill gives schools the ability to circumvent the Miller test and disregard the artistic value of a book or intentions of a book as a whole. So I was like, what the heck is the Miller test? Because I don't know. Looked it up. Now, Liz wanted to mention that this is not a federal policy. Is that correct?
Yet.
So what this is a check and balance. I know we're losing those rapidly, but it's a check and balance for people to determine what books are acceptable to be around which age group. So the Supreme Court has established a 3-part legal definition for obscenity called the Miller test. And no, it is not as easy as I know it when I see it, because that didn't quite work. But it's close, but at least it provides a framework. The average person applying current community standards must find that the work taken as a whole appeals to prurient interests. 2, the work depicts or describes in a patently offensive way sexual conduct as defined by state law. 3, the work taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Here's the problem with that. Those definitions of those things can all be looked at from their colored glasses to circumvent what should be acceptable, reasonable, common sense standards. And we know those don't exist.
The thing to point out with the Miller test is that in order to determine any materials, it has to meet all of those 3 standards within the Miller test. So the Miller test was put together by a Supreme Court and passed during, I can't remember the name of the lawsuit. I don't know, Amanda, if you remember what it was, but
Pico versus Island Trees.
That was it. Pico or Pecker or something like that.
Pico. Yeah.
Pico.
Pikachu.
But that was what rolled out from our Supreme Court. And that has been what we have used for decades for determining things that are pornographic in nature. And I'm here to tell you, being in education all these years, there is very, very little that is in printed material that has no academic, educational, or artistic value.
Even for contextual clues to other things, to understand people's perspective. Yeah. It's important to read someone's incorrect perspective.
Yeah.
Like and that's something.
I think Amanda hopefully would agree with me on this, but I don't think we're talking about allowing every single thing that's ever published to be put up on our shelves anywhere with anybody having full access to it, right? We're talking about we have systems in place and we have to follow those systems. We have to follow the Miller test. We have to follow ways that you can object to materials. And those things are being pushed to the side. And that's why what's happening is unconstitutional, because those things are what are embedded in our society to allow people to object.
Well,
I find it, go ahead. Sorry.
What about this? Pro censors like to post 1 page of a book out of context.
Ah.
Yet when you do that with the Bible, they're like, whoa, that's out of context. For the shock and awe and insinuate that it's on display for children to see or on the shelf next to picture books. The public must learn to investigate these posts and find out the truth for themselves. Most public and school libraries have an online catalog, and anyone can easily look up a book and find out the truth. Finding out the truth is no fun, and it's easier to believe a picture on a social media. One thing I think public libraries should be doing, and I've seen it a little bit here and there, like my public library actually teaches a course for elderly folks on media literacy.
Yeah.
Because media literacy goes right to the heart of propaganda. Yeah. All those people that 20 years ago were like, you shouldn't put your personal information on Facebook. You don't know what to believe. Well, we're looking at those people that are going, look what I just saw on Facebook.
I know. Did you hear? Did you hear? Oh my, they're turning mice transgender. Did you hear? It's like, no.
Well,
oh, stop it.
Something that you touched on that, something that libraries do is teach people media literacy, which is what school librarians do. That's part of our standards.
Yep.
And so they're attacking us for teaching media literacy. But not only that, but the funding that comes for public libraries to pay for the teaching of the media literacy comes from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which was just executive order to be cut yesterday.
Are you telling me that there might be a push in this country from the executive branch to make sure no one has the ability to tell fact from fiction? What could that benefit? Who could that possibly benefit? Is it the wokies or is it the fascists? Because look who's taking over now. We didn't win. Okay, we're not making everyone wear rainbow-colored skirts today. We're not making everyone get transgender surgery, whether they like it or not. What we're happening is seeing the destruction of basic fundamental rights, civil liberties, and our education. That's what we're. So who won? Who actually won?
Yeah, that's
a good
point.
Catching gay. Because this was one of the ones that I'm glad you added. Adding stories to the collection with LGBTQIA+, I said it, characters doesn't take away from the straight kids. It won't magically. It simply gives underrepresented kids books in which they can see themselves. Also, and importantly, these books give the groups of students not historically marginalized ways to learn about other backgrounds, which is what they don't want.
We've joked about that before. Like, you don't just walk into a library and read a book and then come out like all of a sudden you're gay. It's
what? I think I'm gay now.
I know. It's like, oh, wow, I was wrong this whole time.
The problem is that people are identifying with the struggle, the humanity of people. And when you read books about their struggles, their suffering, their coming to terms with their identity, that doesn't make you gay. It makes you compassionate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you, both of you, a question, Liz and Amanda. Well, not really a question, but if you guys would like to explain a little bit, what it's going to mean in the immediate future, I think, for the education system with what they're trying to do as far as cutting funding. Like, what should people expect? Because I think this is a lot bigger issue than people even could comprehend, because public school has always been a thing. You know what I mean? Well, not always, but you know what I mean? So the fact that this is changing at a rapid pace, could change at a rapid pace. What does it mean for our future generations?
Well said, Christy.
I think, well, first of all, the cut in funding is going to hurt the most the kids that have disabilities, the kids that have protections under the federal government, special education students. The funding, the different funding for Title I and Title II and special education protections that, if left up to the states, are the states going to protect? Well, Louisiana is not historically known for being a protector of students. And in regards to funding for libraries and things, and the push to ban books, we're soft censoring. Librarians are soft censoring because they're scared of being arrested and being labeled obscene and groomers and things.
Crazy.
So we're going to see the effects. Even if we get everything corrected in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see the effects of this for decades.
Yep.
The loss of funding to school libraries, books, and targeting students, students of color, students with disabilities, students from historically marginalized communities, are all going to be affected.
Yep.
You said obey in advance. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
We're self-censoring. Self-censorship is when librarians do not purchase books for fear of reprisal, whether that comes in the form of personal attacks on social media, book challenge, or even losing their jobs. Is this obeying in advance? Yeah, it is. You
and
don't.
It's very understandable as well, because
look, I get it. If
we're
your
school
job
teachers and librarians, we're not used to being out there battling to protect ourselves.
You shouldn't have to.
Unreasonable.
You should be focused on educating the future generations, not this.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to be an activist. You know what I mean, Liz? You should not have to spend
retirement.
Your retirement fighting against fascists that are attacking children. And that's what always upset me the most. And this is why education has been one of our main talking points on this show, is that they're attacking children.
Look, to be fair, Liz would be fighting something in her retirement, because we've known her long enough now.
I don't think so, Jeremy. No, I don't think so. Education is what my passion was in my entire career. And I started pushing back when I thought that they were going to undermine the impact that I had as an educator and make my profession become dishonorable. And that's what I couldn't tolerate. I spent my life taking care of other people's children in schools.
Not as babysitters.
And they can't take that away from me.
Well, it's amazing you said that, because the concept of educator, I think, was never broadened to include the full scope of it. Amanda, you're an educator. Librarians,
absolutely.
School librarians, even public librarians have always considered themselves educators. This isn't new. We're not broadening the spectrum or the definition to protect people we want to keep secret. You're educators. Your job is to bring education to people.
Yeah.
Well, I am a certified teacher, and as the school librarian at my school, I'm the only person on my campus that actively teaches every single student in the entire school.
That's a brilliant way to think about that.
That's true.
I actively, we don't just check out books. I do have VR headsets, and we do go on virtual field trips, and we do research, and we do escape rooms, and we do all sorts of things. But I am the only person on campus that actively teaches every student on campus and actively collaborates to provide resources for every faculty member.
Yeah, I just have to say, like, I can't imagine being an educator right now. You're underpaid, you're underappreciated, but then you take
under
on
attack.
those. You essentially become those kids' parents while they're at school. You're responsible for their safety, what they learn, the feeding them, making sure they get to places on time. You're essentially that child's parent.
Jeremy, that's why there's such an uprise against us.
Yep.
Because those that are, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, lacking in parenting,
exactly,
are threatened by other people having a role in the upbringing of their children.
Well,
and we do not want to be their parents. We don't
want to be their educator.
There's legal doctrine called in loco parentis, meaning that a child crosses that doorstep and we are the parent that is in place. for those children. I mean, it's actually spelled out, right?
Yeah.
And people are so threatened by that. And so they therefore manufacture all this horrible stuff like Amanda has been talking about to make us seem less than, to maybe make themselves feel like they were doing a better job. I don't know. Jeremy, I wanted to touch back on, you were talking about the federal impact. And of course, you know, our group watches this very, very closely. And what we're seeing right now is absolutely that push toward exceptional education. And the push that they're doing is called the 504 plan. And the 504 plan has stood kind of side by side with the IEP process. And the 504 is a little bit shorter and easier process to get for your child. It would be things like if your child has asthma, they can actually have some accommodations, right? And so that's kind of this outlier that they're going after first.
That
and
sounds
then
like
specifically,
in the sense that it helps people who otherwise wouldn't be receiving help.
And so I've said all along, right, the 7 mountains mandates, the lowest hanging fruit was education.
Amanda, your face.
So that's why they went after it, right? So within education, what's the lowest hanging fruit? The kids that need special education services. Because number one, you can see their funding. You can track their funding very much, an easier process than looking at the per pupil allotment in a state. You can look at special ed as separate funding. And so that's a lower hanging fruit that these, education supporters go after.
This is an interesting comment. Teachers are there to teach specific curricula. You are not legally bound to the child to decide what they believe. And I think that's part of the problem. I'm gonna go into it and I'm gonna tread as lightly as I can. What a lot of these people don't understand that are attacking education in general is education is a accumulation of knowledge. And your job is to filter through it to try and understand fact from fiction, from relevance, from irrelevance, from context. You can choose as a parent to hammer into your kid what you think they're going to believe, but individuals are going to believe what they believe. It is not a teacher's job to say, you believe this or I'm going to fail you. The job is to get them to understand. And if their fear is that they will now not believe what they're taught at home, which is why they hate colleges, right? Why does everyone who go away to college come back liberal? You're so close. You're so freaking close to answering that question yourself.
Right.
And that's what terrifies me, is that this is a push to groom children into very small, very narrow, very myopic views of the world so that they're more easily controlled, not by politicians, not by public figures, but by parents. Parents seem to be desperate to maintain control on what the kids believe, because if there's new information that the parents don't understand, they're like, oh, I don't get that. That must be attacking my right as a parent. No, maybe you should read the book your kid just read.
Maybe. Well, the thing about that comment is that teachers we do teach the specific curriculum, and part of the curriculum standards, every curriculum standard for every subject, because I teach every subject in our school, there are curriculum standards to help them students learn to think critically. And so teaching students to think critically is not teaching them what to believe. It's giving them the skills to learn to think critically for themselves and decide for themselmes.
They're terrified of the loss of tribal knowledge.
That's really what this all is. The attack on woke is the attack on critical thinking. They don't want critical thinking.
And these attacks, have been brutal. And I think it's the most hurtful part of all of this, that people have said that we are trying to do something that we're not trying to do. So as a kindergarten teacher, I have said, I tried to indoctrinate my kids. I absolutely did. It was how to be kind, how to share, how to not push Johnny out of the line.
How many kids did you teach how to tie their shoe that their parents
And I'm sorry, but I will stand by that for the rest of my life.
Yes.
I want to live in a world where people are kind to each other.
Yeah, that's pretty woke.
If people want to call that woke, if people want to, attack me for that, go for it.
That doesn't seem like too much to ask, but in this world, apparently it is. But hey, Amanda,
that's not my viewpoint. That is common human decency. All of us should be able to agree.
I agree.
I know we're getting late, and there is one thing I do want to touch on, because people think we're making this up. They think we're exaggerating. Someone earlier asked, can I have examples of books that have banned? And I didn't prepare a list, but I'll go through them right now. Every book you read as a kid in school is banned now. Like, you think I'm kidding. Catcher in the Rye. Catcher in the Rye. To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, Our Town. How many books that just taught people how to think in terms of experiences and teach kids that things happen and you'll experience these things and we can get through them together. Every book you and I and all of us read as kids is banned now in many schools. But you think I'm kidding? No. This is just in 2023 to 2024 school year alone. Over 10,000 book bans. Think about that.
That's insane.
Well, let's get to what that really means. In that year, recorded the highest instances of book bans and highest number of unique titles banned. Over 4,000 unique titles removed and over 10,000 book bans. In this school year, a greater percentage of books faced more severe bans in 2023 to 24 than in previous school years, completely removed from district libraries. Okay, well, but what books, right? Because I'm sure they're not taking all the books off them. It almost seems like they have a targeted point to the books they're banned. Well, disproportionate to publishing rates and like prior school years, books in 2023 to 24, prominent subset of overwhelming books with people and characters of 44%, and books with LGBTQ plus people at 39%. Nearly 60% of these banned titles are written for young adult audiences and depict topics young people confront in the real world, including grief and death, experiences with substance abuse, suicide, depression, and mental health concerns, and sexual violence. And why is that important? Guess what no parent talks to their kid about? Guess what very few parents prepare their kids for? Your grandma died. You want to talk to your mom? I get that your mom is grieving, but as a parent, you don't get to shut down. You talk to your kid. I understand that sexual violence is creepy and weird. You don't want to talk about it as a parent. You're doing your kid a disservice to let them not know what to look out for. This really isn't that complicated. And the sad part is this goes back to parents parenting. If parents parented, you wouldn't need as many books. Those books would still be invaluable. Those books would still show that everyone experienced these things. But you got to teach your kid. Your job when you have a kid is to provide education to that kid based on your experience and based on a broader public education.
Amanda, can you talk a little bit about that term that they throw around about banned books? What are we really talking about?
So there's different terms. So like we'll say censorship and challenges and bans. Censorship is the attempt to suppress. A challenge is a formal challenge when a parent or a patron of a library fills out paperwork to formally challenge and question a book. Ban is when it's removed. Right. And so some places you'll see that they'll remove a book from the shelf while they determine whether it's appropriate or not. While it's being removed from the shelf, it's banned. It's not there. And when you say you're banned, we're talking about the government entities banning ideas based on ideology or political viewpoint discrimination. So if you are removing a book based on an idea that you don't like, that's a ban. Well, when you're removing it's a ban anyway. But what we're seeing is being removed based on mostly viewpoint discrimination involving people of color or the LGBTQ plus community. And people will say, oh, there's no such thing as a ban. And I'll point you to Utah, where they passed a law. Utah passed a law that said if 3 school systems object to a book, it's banned across the state. The list is growing. In Utah, there is so in Utah, there is now an actual list. As of right now, there are 17 books officially banned from Utah school systems.
You know, a book, I looked this up. I maybe you could prove me wrong, but one book I could not find, and this is what started me on this whole journey of book bans and stuff like that, was Mein Kampf. That book seems to be A-okay with everyone. I haven't heard a single person on the right bring that book up. That book seems okay. That's not banned. But they are quietly, I mean, this is serious. They are quietly banning words. Right now they're doing it through the Health and Human Services Department. But eventually, you know, what happens if they start banning words and then every book they find that has that word in it is gone. And we're so close. We are like this close, people, to book bans and segregation.
Well,
please take us seriously when we say this.
Yeah.
So, someone brought this up about in 1935, there were burning books in Germany.
Yeah.
Well, which picture is of 1935 Germany.
Mhm.
You might think both, except for the problem that the one
Wow.
on the left was from Tennessee in 2022. The book bans might not be widely spread, but they are being done. They are used as a focal point. They are a rallying cry. They are a symbol to show that the fascism is working.
Yep.
And when you are allowed, look, I wouldn't burn any of Trump's books. I would put them in a reserve section because they're heavily lied and they're garbage, but you should be able to read them and assess for yourself that they're nonsense. I wouldn't ban the Bible. We talked about this. All religious text should be in the history section because they are historical references. Every book has a place. We already know that all the books are vetted. We know that the books are placed in separate areas of libraries. We know that librarians take those areas seriously. But when you cut funding for librarians, you have less people to be able to make sure that those kids aren't going into those sections. So what they're really setting up is kids taking books out or looking at books that they shouldn't and going, look what these libraries are allowing. But they already cut the funding for librarians who can't police the kids because the parents drop them off so they can go drinking. Like, let's be real about this. Libraries are not daycares. They are educational centers. Librarians are not babysitters. Teachers are not babysitters. When you diminish what their role is in society, you more easily remove them from society.
Hey, you know what? I'll volunteer to take babysitter pay.
Yeah, right.
So, all right. So before we get out of here, Amanda, do you have anything coming up that you would like to tell us about or tell our viewers about? And I also put your GoFundMe that you sent me in the description of the video. So if you could explain what that is about, I would greatly appreciate it too.
So I'm currently in a lawsuit with 3 different men for defamation and harassment.
Always men. Always attacking women.
Yes.
Wow.
Liz is like, welcome.
Yes. So I'm in a lot, and they're defamation lawsuits, but they'll have you believe it's about books and protecting children. No, it's defamation and harassment. But I do, right. And I do have, I did form a nonprofit that I'm very proud of called Librarians Building Libraries. And so I will be, 2 other school librarians and I are going to be building a library in Kenya this summer. So yeah, so I do have a nonprofit if anybody wants to look it up. I am currently in the lawsuits. I will say I'm in a documentary that is executive produced by Sarah Jessica Parker. That it just premiered at Sundance and it's called The Librarians. And they actually used that picture you just showed from Tennessee in 2022. They used video of that and edited it from Germany, and it seamlessly edits. It's very scary.
Wow.
Yes. But it will be streaming. It's hitting the festival circuit right now, but it'll be streaming on PBS in October. And it is directed by Kim A. Snyder, who was just up for an Academy Award for her short film Death by Numbers about school shooting violence.
Oh my
God.
That's
So it's
amazing,
that's what I'm looking forward to. Yeah.
That's almost linked.
What is your the link you sent me, the GoFundMe link you sent me? What was that for?
That is my court GoFundMe for all of my court cases, because in Louisiana, well, if I lose my court cases because they're defamation cases, I not only have to pay my court costs but their court costs as well. And wow. I've already spent $60,000. I'm okay on the funding right now, but I will have to pay theirs as well if I lose. But yeah.
Talk about lack of justice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, no one sees the people that are fighting the fight, who are targeted, are getting caught up in these bullshit battles they should not have. And that's the tactic, right? If you tie people up and you make sure they're fighting the not fight, they don't have time to fight the fight. Well, I have 2 women right here who are making the time to fight the fight when they are fighting their own personal fights. I'm going to stop saying that word. And that goes to show you the caliber of people we have on our side, because we are not going to back down. Women like you 2 are going to be what saves us. You guys and Gen Alpha are going to save us, because you guys are fighting the fight that you've been seeing coming. And we have a whole generation learning how to fight that fight when we're not around anymore. So
a couple of final thoughts is thank you too for platforms like this, because Amanda and I can't get our stories out unless we have folks like you. I always call them my ZZ Top podcast.
You got to come up with a new reference.
Bearded Wonder friends.
There you go.
They don't look like the type of people that would be supportive of me, but they have been. And this podcast,
and that's our point.
Absolutely.
Great. I do want to just make a couple of comments about some of the comments that have come through on the stream. And
I know what you're going
I don't want to, I guess, leave it out there that any educators think that they should be sharing their views with students.
Right.
Because again, 99.9% of the time, that is not what we do. And I will be the first one to object if an educator crosses the line. I will be the first one to say that they need to be pushed out of my profession.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're talking about is commonly accepted issues within society, like kindness, acceptance, equity.
That's the
I
big
know
one for
people
me.
don't understand equity and they get, kind of scared off by that. Equity doesn't mean that anyone earns less. It means that everyone gets an equal shot at things.
Right.
And if you don't believe that everyone should have an equal shot, then I don't know. I find that to be un-American. I honestly do.
I do.
Yes.
And so I understand that not everyone is going to agree with everything that we say, but basically what we're asking is for people to not buy into the false narrative that is out there.
Right. Please.
We are not your enemies. We are the go-to people that can help society become stronger. And by stronger, I mean inclusive. And no matter what your belief system is, you may not want to have, for example, the Black community included. You may not want to have the LGBTQ plus community included. But where do you draw that line of when exclusion is acceptable?
Mm-hmm.
First they came for blah, blah.
That's exactly it. And that's why I'm fighting so strongly. It's not to make anyone convinced that, oh, gee, being gay is fantastic, or being gay is this or that, and everyone should be that. But it's not okay to attack any group of people solely for things that are just part of their world.
Right. And just be better, man.
And in most cases, it's things that they cannot change. That's the fundamental, I think, disinformation out there, is that somebody's just walking along the street one day and they decide, oh, I think I'll be gay. Or like you said before, oh, I read this book, I think I'll be gay. Right. That's not
I clubbed gay. I touched the gay book. Oh God.
I got it.
Yeah. So even those that are the naysayers to the push for equity and equality, please understand that this fight is about your rights too. It's not just the marginalized that are at stake here. We cannot be a society where a small minority of people get power over all of us.
Well, I agree.
Do they get a seat at the table? Absolutely get a seat at the table.
Of course.
But
everyone deserves a seat.
They shouldn't be the thinking of who's in charge, just this minority of
Amanda, you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say to her point is that just because you include everyone's stories on the shelves, you include the stories with characters that have two moms, or that doesn't mean you're pushing anything.
Right.
It means you're including because those children and their parents pay taxes and deserve to be represented in those libraries as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think Amanda would agree also that schools are not the push for the changes in society. We merely reflect the changes within a society.
That's a really interesting way to put it.
We didn't develop the LGBTQ plus community, but because it is more and more and more part of our communities, it should be included.
Right.
Again, that goes to libraries, and librarians are the repositories of collected knowledge. They are not, as you said, pushing a specific knowledge, but if your belief system and the belief system you expect your children to follow is so easily fractured by experiencing other people's stories.
Well, and as a parent, I can say without any doubt that my son had influence from educators throughout his he's actually going to graduate from college this year. But I never lost my ability to influence my son.
Do you mean you have a good relationship with your kid, not based off the crap out of them and expecting them to follow you?
So although they say, this whole movement with Moms for Liberty is, I don't want to co-parent with the government. Guess what? Everything they're trying to do means that government would have more and more influence over what your child is or does. And do we want that? Many people want it right now because, the government seems to lean in their direction. What if those tables were turned? then
well,
what?
perfect example. Let's break down the whole system and make it so that everything is just what the parents say, or teachers are just what the president says. If we have elections again and we get a super, super ridiculously liberal president, for example, you can be upset that the government is now doing that. No, they don't think that far ahead, because to my opinion, I don't think they're planning for anything to change. And we have to make sure we continue to fight to not allow their vice grip on our future.
Mike, can you show the one slide one more time with the book?
Oh, yeah, I kept it for a specific reason, and that was it. Again, it is a necessary book for an unnecessary fight, but I implore you all to read it.
Yes, please do, because this is a perfect example of how we cannot back down. We cannot succumb to the pressure, and you will probably in your lifetime never face the pressure that Amanda has faced.
Correct.
And so it might be a little easier even for a lot of the viewers of your podcast to take action. I have a new mantra. If Amanda can do it, I can do it.
So I want to thank you for coming on the show, Amanda. I know you're extremely busy. And I'd love to have you on again in the future.
Please.
For sure. Because there's going to be, I'm sure, a whirlwind of developments in the future. We'd like to obviously keep up to date on what's going on with your legal cases and all that stuff. So,
and anything we could ever do to help, you want.
Yes, please.
We're meager and there's probably nothing, but definitely extending anything we can do, Branch.
Please. Yes.
Thank y'all for having me. It was a pleasure talking with all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll end with this. The one thing I've been saying a lot lately is that real Americans don't support fascists, and real patriots support the rights of every person on American soil, regardless of who they are, where they came from, or how they got here. That's what America should be. Okay. Like I think acceptance. I think a lot of us were taught tolerance back in the day, which is, I don't think, a good thing, because when you tolerate something, you secretly hate it. But I think acceptance and unity is what we need in the future, and just be better people. Like, I'm just so tired of the nastiness. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Like, I don't understand how these people are mad all the time about everything.
They are.
So, thank you for watching. Again, if you guys are able to help us out at all or donate, we do have a GoFundMe link in the description of the video. Amanda's is in there as well. Yes. Please like, subscribe, share this video, leave a bunch of comments. If you want to just leave a blue heart or a smiley face emoji, that's fine too. Any interaction is good. We love you all. Thank you so much for the support. And like always, we will talk to you soon.